These are powerful cars, and on cold tyres they can be a little bit skittish, can't they? Need a good engine, and we saw a few laps ago, didn't we, that Boyven in that Honda definitely has a bit of extra power at his disposal.
Certainly did. Let's see what happened then between Killian Ryan Meenan for Sidemax Motorworks and the Logitech G Altus esports car of Simone Maria Marceno as we run through into the cutting. This is where we saw Killian Ryan Meenan backwards, so they're all stacking up ahead, and it's just contact, the concertina effect. Everyone sat there in one line and people charging in a little bit and causing further bits of contact. There's just people trying to push their way through. We were told that drivers making contact under yellow flags, obviously it's a heinous crime in motorsport, but in sim racing they do get told off doubly so as well, and I'm sure for a couple of those drivers there'll be a few slaps on the wrist indeed. And then it was an 18-point turn for the Aston Martin.
Even further, so yeah, I mean that is a big effing chat if that's the case.
Yes, it really is, and the teams that we've been talking about that if they stay out of trouble they can profit from this. We're talking about Yassi, G2, etc, starting to profit from some mistakes from the top guys. We've seen Hartfeld make the mistake, and we've seen others start to make mistakes with drive-thrus for Hassini. So yeah, we're starting to see this happening now, and this is the crunch point. The pressure is on. There's a lot at stake. We have said it before. There's so much at stake in this race, more than any race they've probably ever competed in. And now this is getting into the crunch phase. This is where the pressure will make some diamonds and will ruin others. So it is really, really pressure time now.
Here we go then. This is a replay for the number 32. He's coming through. That looks like it's going to be Solman Park. It's on to McPhilly Park. Oh my goodness me! Straight into a stranded 118. I'm gonna be quite honest with you. I think there was a lot more time to fire onto the brakes and take evasive action on that. But what do you do, Coral, when you're faced with a stricken car in the middle of the track? We'll keep another look at this here for the 32. And again, oh, the car just comes firing onto the track in front of him. But I mean, that is a horrible, horrible situation. But I mean, the reactions, yeah, I just don't know. I mean, what do you do in that situation?
Oh, I'm absolutely gutted. That is horrible. I think at any other corner in this track, he could have got it stopped. But that was just such a fast pace of tarmac there. We're going to see another angle of it. This is a viewpoint here. We're on board. And yeah, look how fast it is through this corner. You see nothing. Oh, there's a car in front of me. Where's he going to go? Oh. And then you decide, you could see the way he went left, right, left. He was in between where he was going to go. Was he going to go around the right side of him, left side of him? And then unfortunately he just ended up hitting him square on. So that was really, really unfortunate for Chris Hartfeld. But unfortunately that's just, you have to put it down, that's racing.
An update for Michael Baldwin, speeding in the, James Baldwin. Speeding in the pit lane is why he had a drive-through, and the 118 retires, and yeah, like, it's been an awful day for Full Pace Racing. We wish them all the best in the remaining races, but I think today is the day to hang it up and regroup and come back.
Is Giannis Charadakis in the number 34 Aston Martin, but Raffaele Di Nardo, who's 11th quickest, is only 9 1,000ths behind it. So 9 1,000ths at the moment, separating the 11th placed car from getting into that all-important top 10. What about James Bacon? He's just outside the top 10. Can't improve
the
on...
666 of Di Nardo comes in and says to Rosenbaum, well, you maybe want to drop another place because I'm going a bit quicker by about 6,000ths of a second. And then from Rosenbaum to Hjordakis, it's another 6,000ths. That's how close this qualifying is being decided. And this is only for getting into the top 10.
It's remarkable, isn't it? And we also had another improvement, by the way, whilst you were talking there. Andrea Miato has moved the 164 GTWR Racing Team Aston Martin into the top 10 as well. So we are seeing some changes there towards the back of the top 10. He is now in by about 0.5 of a second. James Bacon is on the outside looking in, 16th place at the moment for the 125 Aston Martin. And goes Knight, gets into that top 10 now, does James Bacon. Not by a huge amount, though. He is safe by again, about half a tenth really. He's 3/1000 slower than the 8th place McLaren and Mikhail Statsenko.
As Jonas van der Oysen puts in the chat, because now Great Britain's James Bacon out on the circuit and has started his hot lap, the 4th successive Aston Martin. Then we got Kevin Ciclari in the 191 Racing Line Motorsport. You know what's really, really funny though, because from 10th to 5th we're all Aston Martins. Then we'll have the BMW of Niles Noyox. Then we'll have Cymax Motorworks and Ambassadors for Milton, both in Aston Martins, and then the Ferrari of GTWR. So we'll see what happens, because the Bacon intensity in the YouTube chat has gone to quite literally another level, because they've been waiting for this driver to come out onto the circuit. Bacon makes his way through into Les Combes, and then we'll head down the hill through the right-hander here at Malmedy before the next right-hander here at Rivage. And interestingly, I saw in the chat a little bit earlier on, can't remember the name of the individual, but thank you for this welcome bit of information. This corner here, known as No Name in general, is actually known in Belgium as Speaker's Corner, because you can actually hear the commentator from that locality on the circuit. Now James Bacon makes his way through into the double left here at Pouhon. Makes that nice and tidy going through there. But then it's the real run down the hill, the momentum carry here, Andy, through in towards Lifagne and into Stavelot.
Yeah, and this is where it starts getting really tricky. Quite a lot of corners coming at you thick and fast here through the second part of this middle sector, but James Bacon looks neat and tidy through them, doesn't he? I knew it was a mistake to look at the chat. I'm very hungry now after seeing all of the bacon emojis, which I didn't even know was a thing, so that's something new that I've learned tonight. James Bacon, though, I've not had any reason to use it before, but I'm going to try and find a reason now to slip it into every conversation I have. Anyway, James Bacon, more importantly, looked as though he ran too wide there, did he? And is that an invalidated lap? It is. So James Bacon, I'm afraid, all of the bacon emojis in the world aren't going to save him. His lap time is invalidated. And that is a costly mistake, isn't it, Alex? Because that means that he's going to start down at the back of the grid.
Well, he definitely hasn't brought the bacon home for pole position.
Absolutely, they know the race is bigger than the first lap. Yeah, you mentioned guys starting out of position. Well, out of position or not, when the top 33 is split by 6/10, that's one braking zone, isn't it, really? So, even though qualifying didn't go exactly to plan, you know there's going to be a very, very long line of cars all scrapping for position as soon as the lights go green.
Yeah, it's going to be pretty tight. We've also got another interview at the early stages of this, as we are going to catch up with a team who did very, very well yesterday indeed, the Ubik Events Racing. We've got Eric Neat in the booth, and gotta say, massive congrats to getting into Q2 yesterday.
Well, thank you. Yeah, it was a crazy day. We were hoping for like top 20. And suddenly we were P7 in the top 10 shootout. It was emotional and very, very, very hyped. Yeah.
You qualified outside of the top 40 back at Bathurst. Where does that pace come from to get inside the top 10 here at Spa? That's such a big step forward.
Yeah. Well, we had a really bad qualifying in Bathurst, so we only did like a 59.9, and it was not on pace. We usually do 3 or 2 tenths faster than that, so we should have been higher up in Bathurst. But yeah, Spa is a great track for the Aston, and Bathurst isn't. So that's one thing, and we just put a lot of effort into the setup and into practice. So and it paid off. Yeah, I'm really happy.
Now, I'm going to, this almost seems like I'm attacking it from a very negative point of view, but is there a little bit of disappointment even from Q2? Because you got in there, you qualified in 7th to get into Q2. Is there a little bit of disappointment that you didn't set a time, that there might have been a bit more on the table, maybe even a little bit further up the grid?
Well, yeah, James, we were talking to James after that, and he said there was a lot of times still left on the track, but more than P7 wouldn't be possible with that lap. So we are happy to be in the top 10, but could have been better. But still, it's still crazy to think about.
We've spoken a little bit before on the broadcast just a bit earlier that about this danger zone in the mid-pack and how it can get a little bit chaotic. You've qualified up in 10th. Do you think you're out of that danger zone where it can be a bit chaotic?
I was actually thinking about that today too, and well, it's definitely helpful to be further up the front, and we hope to avoid any crashes if there are any. And yeah, we just have to hope to get through without any damage and get a good race, yeah.
Are you well prepared? Final question. Are you well prepared for the wet, which we're potentially getting here at Spa?
Yes, we did some wet practice. The practice servers were like mostly wet, and so we did a lot of practice in the dry and in the wet. So I think we have a good package for this race. And hopefully we can get a good result by a lot of practice.
Well, we will leave you to get back to your team. Fingers crossed for you. The last two cars that were inside the top 10 and in that final part of qualifying, Lada Sport Rosneft, that was Yiga Ogorognikov behind the wheel, and he got it up to 9th position. Ubik Events Racing, James Bacon gets 10th place, and then the drivers outside of that are the ones that didn't progress through to Q2. One of the great factors of Killian Ryan Meenan and brother Cormac Ryan Meenan as well is they're really, really good at working their way up the grid. They don't normally qualify very well. Well, I mean, how do you bypass that? Hand qualifying off to someone else and start from pole position. I expect that Ryan Meenan will actually be really quite strong in the early stages of the race, because I know that he goes well very, very early, and the potential expectation then is to try and break the field in the very, very early stages.
Absolutely, if you're starting at the front, your game plan's got to be break the guys behind as quickly as you can, get in their head, ruin their confidence, and then just settle down and do the best job you can for the rest of your stint.
A couple of drivers that will be up there towards the top end of the grid that may cause not some problems, but will be aggressive in the early stages. Lada Sport Rosneft was qualified by Yiga Ogorognikov and is driven by Yiga Ogorognikov. We've got James Bacon there for Ubik Events Racing, who was quite quick in the first part of qualifying, got himself 7th position, and then didn't set a time in that Q2 session. They'll be looking to work their way forward, and to be honest, with Ogorognikov, not to jump too much with the conclusions, because he actually has driven quite a lot cleaner recently, and we know that he's got a lot of a fan base in chat, so I'll try and not shoot myself in the foot in the early stages. I'd sit behind him and work my way through with him.
Yeah, quite a common technique in motorsport. If you're behind a guy who you know loves to make a move, why would you pass them? He's just going to make a move straight back on you. You might as well sit behind, let them make the moves, and do a bit of a karting strategy and just follow them through. It's quite an efficient way to make some progress up the field. So if the guys are going to have their heads screwed on properly, I don't expect them to be getting 2 elbows out at the start of the race.
Did notice there, didn't actually quite pick up on it when we were going through the grid, but it's going to be a little bit hard to pick out, obviously a bit further down the order, so we won't worry about it too much. But the Jean Lacey Esports Academy DV1 Triton, the Jean Lacey Esports Academy Cup car that's starting down sort of 36 to 38, all got the same colours. I do forget that because it's this light blue and then a dark contrast, so we'll keep our eye on that. Of course, you can see here those special colours that were being run on the Ubik Events Racing car that were being told about by Chris Herker at the start. Obviously it's slightly silver because they won here in the silver class last year, so we'll keep our eye on them and see what they can do to work their way forward. Do like some of the liveries that we've got here in the VCO World Cup. It's going to be really important for some of these Astons to clear off in the early stages. We were told that they might match a little bit better to these wet conditions over a long period. Of course, you use a bit less fuel in the wet. That could be very, very important because the Astons do tend to burn.
On the charge, the Aston Martin's looking really good off the start. Also to note, James Bacon from P10 on the grid up to P8. Very good start by him for the Ubik Events Racing team. Looking forward to push through the field in these early stages.
Yeah, and you can see him there in that silver car. Whoa, look at that from Lecombe, though, as he's going side by side with Yiga Ogorognikov. This is just behind James Bacon, the one driver that you were talking about, who was putting pressure himself on Saklari and Camera ahead. You can see there, Yiga Ogoroghnikov's diving it down the inside, just on the corner of the shot at La Source, and he's going to lose out because the grip off the corner, just not ideal. Yaz Heat running slightly different colours this round, running the yellow of Pirelli as they've jumped up with sponsorship with the Italian organisation, being told penalty coming through, first one of the day, this one going the way of that 777 in that instant that going the way of the 191 in the instant that we just saw where he spun the 777, and SG Stern receiving a penalty already.
Not a good start to the race for those guys. Needed to keep their nose clean, and I think it was just a small misjudgment with blown up consequences, unfortunately. So a lost time. But you still got 23 hours and 40 minutes to go when you look at the clock. So if you still get everything right from now on, still chance for a good result.
Absolutely. James Bacon currently on screen, Gamble and Camera. Camera's been able to pull away a little bit in this sort of train, but as Saklari got ahead of Gamble, he has gone. He has absolutely cleared off. It's now up to 3.6 seconds, was 3 on the previous lap, so pulling away quite quickly.
I've been thoroughly impressed by James Bacon in this early stages. I don't think I've seen him make contact with another car yet, and he's moved up 3 places from his starting position and is now on the back of Henrik Gamble. And if he can get past Gamble, Camera is open for grabs and then clear track for 6 and a few seconds in front.
Looking at the 601 Audi, that one being the E-Sport Performance car. We're more focused on the Audi, the Aston Martin behind. Oh, they're both overdoing it a little bit with the Ferrari ahead. There's a bit more contact for good measures. That Sönke just picking his way through all of that and basically just locked in the middle of the road, trying to look for a bit of clear space to get off the road. I'd say, all things considered, after being spun around in a difficult scenario like that, that's about as well handled as you could wish. James Bacon, not content with 7th, wants himself a 6th place at present. No way through. Decent effort around the outside, but we've seen time and time again around the outside that they come. Yes, it gives you the inside for the next bit, but yeah, and you're on the outside for Malmedy, and then running down the hill, you just can't take advantage.
Yeah, Bacon all over the back of Gamble, but you've got to bear in mind that whilst he scraps, he's leaving himself open for attack from Kontogiannis behind in the green Aston Martin, so he's got to be careful where he places his car.
This is 666. We'll see what happens to him. So loses the rear end, then comes back onto the road. There's Jordan Sherritt, who just gets clipped ever so slightly. That's quite a hard hit into the barrier on the far side. I've seen that time and time again. It's just as you go up through the compression at Eau Rouge that it just really bottoms out the car and causes difficulties. Look at that. You were saying about Kontogiannis, who was behind trying to attack James Bacon. Well, now it's Yiga Ogoroghnikov who's made that position up, just courtesy of the mistake from the Greek driver, and the Russian moving forward as we ride on board with James Bacon.
It seems to be missing all the action here, watching things and then hopping back and forth through replays. So obviously good move from Ogoroghnikov, and now he can try and push on to lose to gain back a few of those places.
You can see from the onboard of James Bacon how difficult it is to spot. You can see, to be honest, no disrespect to Gamble, Henrik Gamble, who's currently leading this train. You can see where that car is slower. It's right at apex speed. I wonder if he's not so much running a wet setup in this scenario, because it seems like there is a lack of grip on that Aston Martin as things stand, and James Bacon looks a lot faster at present. Arthur Camera's gap has come down because I thought he pulled out a little bit more than that, but still Saklari is pulling out even further. It's gone out to 5 seconds now over Arthur Camera. Camera's gapped the field of this group anyway, and yeah, Bacon just not able to get through. Very much the cork in the bottle, as to use the phrase. Gamble is in this scenario.
Watch out for Ogoroghnikov going up the Kemmel straight. Bacon a little bit compromised over the top of Radion. Bacon goes defensive. Ogoroghnikov tries to find a half a gap, but James Bacon not having any of it up to the top of the Kemmel straight.
Always going around the outside. These two were closest. There we go from Yiga Ogorognikov. That's what we expect to see from the young Russian around the outside at Lecom. Clean move, great move around the outside where other people had failed to make that one stick. The number 41 on a march forward, and the fan base will be going wild now. Sets his sights on the 6th place of Gamble.
Looking forward to picking up my BS competition stuff.
They do look good.
But they do look good, don't they? I'm looking forward to trying it on. But yeah, you see it floating around now, and it just looks the part, and it's good to represent your brand.
Especially if we go to get back to the standard of LAN events and stuff, and meeting up and then having your sim racing gear all looks very good. You can see there on your screen, car 666, car 1 at 5.4, and lap 3, drive 3 penalty for the car 154. That is Dondi that's currently running in 13th position, so drive 3 penalty, picking up a couple in the early stages, seeing these drive-throughs coming through. Jordan Sherritt still has escaped. I'm not sure if that's because Race Control have already looked at it and have denied it, or if they've just not even got round to seeing it yet, because there's been quite a lot of calamitous stuff happening towards the back. But this is what we were talking about. You said about like drive-through penalties and not getting drive-throughs in the early stages because of track limits and stuff. A drive-through for contact, you're already in the bad books of Race Control. Not a way to start it.
Absolutely, you've got to tread carefully, and that drive-through is going to drop them miles down the field. As we see, Gamble now on the defence from Ogorognikov, wide through Puwan. There's a little bit of contact. Ogoronikov's going to hang it in there and get the inside for the next corner. Is he going to give a little bit of contact back? Good move from Yiga Ogorognikov up into P6. He's broken Gamble's stern defence. And, well, we know he's aggressive. He used it, but as far as I'm concerned, that was fair game in my book.
Yeah, feisty stuff. You could potentially argue he turned it a little bit too much, but I think by the trajectory was given enough room. The two just sort of came together there on the first apex of the Fanya chicane, or Piff Path, which is the best name for it. And yeah, had the move done before they even got to campus. Fantastic stuff from Ogorognikov, and exactly what he needed to do. I'm going to try and fire his way through and follow up the order. James Bacon as well to the inside for Ubik Events Racing, committed on the brakes, but he's going to have the inside for the first part, the outside for the second part of the final chicane, and once again Henrik Gamble is just able to hang on, and if Bacon attacks any harder, Lecom's also going to come through, the AAA esports driver as well. Going to try and go around the outside of the source. I don't really see this one working out. We've seen it happen a couple of times. Surely not towards Eau Rouge. Surely not. They're going to be side by side. Oh, they're going to give it a go. Bacon's got to back out. He's got to back out.
He's not going to. He does eventually, but purely because Gamble held the inside. I cannot believe there wasn't a monumental crash there. Wow, wow, wow. That is bravery half an hour into the race.
Oh, Lecom also here. He's maybe looking. You can see it in the rear view mirror at the top. Also, Kontiyanis also going to try and find his way up a position in this scenario. Maybe a little. Meanwhile, the Aston Martins, they're not going to be able to get to that point, we think. So potentially it might just be a little bit of fuel saving. Might just be a little bit of conservation from Camera at the moment. But clearly his rear tyre's going off just a little bit more than he'd want.
Yeah, definitely not ideal, and I wonder if they went with a slightly more aggressive setup on the car just to try and get out the blocks a little bit faster. But yeah, the tyres coming back to bite that BMW, and we knew the Aston Martin was as we see Bacon get wide through Puwan. Good save, but does lose a place to Lacon behind. But after the fantastic start, he needs to keep that car on the road.
Good catch from that snap. Very easy to overcorrect in that scenario. So for the Ubik Events Racing car to only drop a single position in that sense would be, you'll take it. It could be worse. Speaking of other Aston Martins that have been struggling a little bit recently, by the way, Kontiyanis dropped back behind Thibaut Probst, as well as the 720 McLaren, so dropping just a little bit down the order. Machkovsky making that position up, but is under pressure from Kontiyanis as well behind. So a few drivers under pressure as we approach that potential first pit stop within the next 20 minutes, nearly an hour complete in the Thrustmaster 24 Hours of Spa. Miato has pulled out an awfully large gap over Tauscher since getting through. The question was on differential of setup. Seems like Miato in that 164 car is running a lower downforce setup, the 211 of Tauscher running a higher downforce setup, which says to me that the 211 is more running a more wet focused setup. Clearly not working out 110% in this scenario.
Yeah, in a race such as this, you've got to set up the car for all of the race. You can't really make big setup changes throughout the race in the pit stops. So you can start the race on a wet setup if you think it's going to be majority wet, but if the track dries out, some guys who have gone from more intermediate or dry setup further back and start making their way back through. So we probably have a huge variety of setups on the grid right now, varying from the dry ones that they probably would have run a couple of days ago in qualifying to the full wets to get off well at the start. So it'll be interesting to see how this race plays out. Of course, all rain for the next 30 minutes, you can see in the top right of the screen, but if that does dry out, expect to see more changes down the order.
Lecom, by the way, got through into Lecom on Gamble, so the position switch ahead. So finally another driver getting past the 995 ambassadors for Ren Welton. A bit of a snap there running down the hill as well. Is this James Bacon's best opportunity out onto that AstroTurf for Gamble? Clearly losing a lot of the rear grip in that Aston Martin at present, and for James Bacon, he'll be sat there thinking, oh, why couldn't I have made that move? Because it's taken me out. I've been sat behind this guy for an hour now. I'm getting a bit bored.
Confidence, tyre wear, yeah, it's all going to make a difference, definitely. So interesting to see that if the pace continues to decrease. So we'll be keeping a keen eye on Statsenko's progress for the rest of this stint.
And we'll be keeping our keen eye on Bacon, who, as Camera's tyres are dropping off, is this Bacon's best opportunity to dive it down the inside. He is going to fire it on the brakes, but the brakes on that BMW seem more than matched to the Aston Martin. No one going into the pit lane from that group. Everyone staying out an hour complete. I'd suspect most people will try and take it around the circuit for at least the next sort of 5 to 10 minutes. The pit window for the first stint time closes effectively in 15 minutes time from now. So there's still plenty of time. Again, I'm going to say I reckon that BMW is
right out to the edge of the fuel window. The question is, can the tyres make it? As Bacon now goes to the outside down the Camel Straight, obviously got a better run through Radion and Eau Rouge. Camera though with that BMW, really impressive straight line speed, but the car looks an absolute handful to drive right now. We know it's good on fuel, but is it going to be able to make the tyres last?
Yeah, that was... I'm going to take a bit of an assumption there might have been a mistake there from Camera, because was really, really slow over the top. And now Thibaut Probst as well as a part of this. The number 32, I know he does well in wet weather conditions and certainly fancies himself in the trickier conditions. So yeah, a little bit of a mistake there from Camera, and Bacon is fancying himself an extra position. Already Igor Rognikov has pulled an enormous gap on this group, and Camera's tyres, this BMW, I thought it was going to be, we know fuel mileage potentially a little bit better. I did not expect the tyres to be this bad in comparison to that Aston Martin.
Fallen off by an absolute mile. If we look at the gap from Camera to Ogorodnikov, who was battling with earlier, that is an enormous gap to lose in a small space of time.
Yeah, we're being told as well, the 888 car of Knight, who's currently in 11th position, has been faster than anyone in this queue, has really forcing his way up the grid, has got the McLaren to pass of Machkowski, then Props, then Bacon, and if he can get all of that done before Camera's through, before Bacon's through on Camera, that'll be great, because based on his pace right now, surely he should be able to make that move stick. Oh, wide at Blanchimont, not ideal from Bacon, just pushing it too far through the exit of that corner, an hour complete.
Yeah, not as close as he was. One
then
lap.
Struggle on tyres. We're seeing that mostly coming the way of Arthur Camera, who might be passed here by James Bacon. Let's just see if this move happens. Bacon to the outside. No way through at present, and the BMW is going to hang on. Is there anything they can do on track to sort of negate that disadvantage of the tyres?
It's very difficult. I mean, the Astons are famed for their tyre wear. It's one of the best cars in the game on tyres. So it's very difficult to try and control that if you're in a car like the BMW, because towards the 75 minutes on a single set of wets against cars that are going to have a natural advantage on you anyway is always going to be an uphill task. And this is just like a natural evolution of the stint now, where towards the end, when the fuel gets lighter, obviously the rear of the BMW is going to raise, because where the fuel tank is, it's going to be a little bit more nervous, and the Aston's just with that superior advantage that they have, it's just going to basically snowball now for the next 15 minutes. So Arthur's got as you see, he had a massive moment there, and James Bacon has now made the move. He's just got to hang on now, and this is they won't be panicking, G2, because this is essentially still a race of fuel numbers. It's still maximise the stint, get the 75 minutes every time, because these Aston Martins, if it goes dry later on in the race, 12-13 hours down the line, and we have 12 hours of dry running, they're still going to save a pit stop on average. So that's 2 minutes of time, driving time, that the Astons have got to gain. So I don't think the guys will be worried just yet. But they
strategy.
do.
Yeah, a bit of an odd call, bit more lap traffic as well, working its way in this outfit. We can see that Malinovsky is now ahead of Eric Neat, so he has made that move at some point around the back end of the circuit. So for Sidemax Motorworks, finally they are back ahead, and they got back ahead of the Unicorns of Love in an easy move, and now they've got by Neat as well. They've lost a little bit of time to Axel Petit.
I mean, that was a blatant incident that happened there. It doesn't matter whether or not the car involved was a lap down or not, but yeah, that was wild and absolutely indefensible. And look, it's a case of for the 995, they've taken the punishment, they've taken their penalty, they get on with it, and they're not going to be the last one involved in incidents through the race. So it's just a case of trying to minimise these risky incidents, these risky manoeuvres, and just try to keep your nose as clean as possible. And realistically, that's what's going to determine the top 10.
Yeah, I think at the end of the day, probably looking at it from a different aspect, maybe the 995 maybe should have just maybe backed off a little bit, just in my honest opinion here. We're all entitled to our honest opinion. People might not necessarily agree with it, but if they'd lifted out of it, then maybe that would have been a bit easier going through, as Eric Neath just goes around the outside. Magic Malinovsky right there, and that's into the approach going through into the bus stop chicane. A big thanks to James Parker once again for some more information. He told me that the 123 on the previous pit stop did not change tyres, but just took on fuel, so they've stayed on the original.
A little bit of time there, and I think they've actually dropped down now, so they're behind the 211 of Killian Ryan Meenan. I'm just trying to check what other cars that he's fallen behind there, but certainly he's gone down into fifth. In fact, he's away down into sixth place, because that's going to allow Bastian Richter up into fifth as well. So James Bacon, oh my goodness me, that is from the looks of it, that's been an unassisted moment.
Yeah. So they're just coming through Stavlo, and I can confirm that Bastian Richter is now ahead of James Bacon. The greasy conditions not helping James Bacon at and it looks like James Bacon actually lost it through No Name on the slick tyres. So there's probably a little bit, maybe he's picked up a little bit of damage, but mounting the sausage curve there on the right hand side, but manages to take it nice and neatly through. Now, he was the one that was everyone was cheering on in the chat on Thursday night in the Super Pole, and actually didn't set a lap time because he invalidated it by exceeding track limits. But to still see that car in the top 10, nearly in the top 5, well, was in the top 5 until that moment there for James Bacon. He might be kicking himself a little bit, but he's just got to pick himself up, dust himself off, and get back and keep pushing.
But here we go then. This is going to be a replay of the 125 of James Bacon. Runs wide out of the corner, gets a little bit of a wiggle on a clip, and some damage on that right hand side, and a nudge onto the front end of that car to good measure. And Yeah, that's going to be, Alex, I think about, what, 15 seconds, maybe no more than that, of damage onto that car. So a very warm welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. 18 hours and 45 minutes left to go in the SimGrid VCO World Cup race number 2. Dave Christie and Alex Goldschmidt here with you for the next 2 and a bit hours. And what a stint we have had so far. We've had the thought, we've had it teased to us that it might have been getting a little bit brighter, it might have been getting a little bit better, but now the gods have decided to say, no, we're going to have a little bit more rain. Quite how much, we don't know. We're going to find out along with you guys on the stream over the next half an hour. But it is Simone Fidel for the number 164 GTWR Racing Team number 4 out in front, as they have done.
Through into Rivage, and there is James Bacon. Chris Hartveld actually then says in the chat, I wonder if we were even going to get any dry conditions at all. Well, Chris, your guess is as good as ours today, my friend. And it looks like the streaky bacon emojis have hit the chat again, courtesy of Amanda Rice as well, cheering on James Bacon as now I've just seen it drive through for the number 32. That's the GTWR R8G Academy car with Tibor Prost behind the wheel. So yeah, that's not a good sign. And they're in P8 at the moment, and they started P13.
Battle for third place and fourth place also between Killian Ryan Meenan and James Bacon. That is kicking off quite massively as well. We see it here as James Bacon into the ahead of Killian Ryan Meenan. And Killian Ryan Meenan was in that third spot for considerable gap. Now, Alex, the 194 Bentley, that is of course the Racing Line Motorsport 194 of Benson Machazi that was behind the wheel. They've jumped ship. They're onto wet tyres already.
So a 46-minute stint from what has now officially become the Boatley, because it's gone on wet weather tyres. That's a brave call. That is a very brave call.
Alex, what's happened to Simone? Oh, he's into the pit. Sorry, I was panicking there because that gap, I just saw the gap down to 17 seconds, and Simone Fidel, now your race leader, into the pit lane.
You know what this means? Having started 9th nearly, 6 hours ago, Lada Sport Rosneft will be in the lead of this race. Who would have thought this? I mean, it's been a great effort. I mean, the thing is, if I was Fideli right now, they've got to go wets. They've got to put that strategy out there and go on wet weather tyres. But it's about how much longer Ogorodnikov is going to stay out in that vehicle. And the moment, Igor has been out in that car for just over 61 minutes. So maybe stay out there for maybe another 5 to 6 minutes, depending on how bad the weather conditions deteriorate over the next 10 minutes before the deluge really happens. So it's about how Lada Sport Rosneft respond to the 164. So Fideli is on wets. We'll see. We'll then have to see what the pace is from the 164 Aston Martin and how Lada Sport Rosneft respond. It is now down to what happens for when Igor Ogorodnikov decides to pit, the number 41, and now James Bacon and Killian Ryan Meenan find themselves rounding out the top 3, and with 18 hours and 6 minutes and 50 seconds to go, top 8 lockout for Aston Martin.
Yeah, it's back to as it was just a couple of hours ago for the Aston Martins. The wet weather conditions turning the balance of favour into their preference right now. But it's all eyes right now on Igor Ogorodnikov in the 41 Lada Rosneft machine coming through Blanchimont, because if he can keep his pace at 227s, no doubt that will take massive chunks out of that gap in the lead. So he's just coming up to the chicane just now. We'll see what he can do into the next lap here. If he can, like I say, if he can keep it 2:27, 2:28, I don't think so. 2:27.7 for Igor Ogorodnikov, so he goes across the line there, down in towards the first turn. In fact, is Ogorodnikov into pit lane because the 911 has caught up on him quite quickly there. No, he's not. He's still out on track just now. So 2:27.7 for Igor Ogorodnikov. We'll wait with bated breath to see what Simone Fidel can do on a fast lap here. But at the moment, no signs of slowing down from Igor.
Yeah, and good to see our good friend Mr. McGlade in the chat again. He said, getting wetter? Damn. I went, yep. It's not going to be an easy Thrustmaster 24 hours of Spa for those out on track, and also for us in the commentary box as well.
No, certainly not, and getting caught up in a battle is a great way to do that, so he might want to just stay out of this. We'll wait and find out in the next few moments, although the pressure being put onto him right now by the 125 is not enormous. He's just kind of there watching on him from behind, and to be honest, Eric Neek might not want to get through at the moment. You know, he might just be happy to quite sit there and just to kind of bide his time a little bit. Rowan Yoli, by the way, got a cut track warning on the last couple of laps, so he could be in a little bit of trouble too much longer if he continues to do that, so he's going to have to watch that ever so slightly and not watch his mirrors too much, because it's very easy to do that, watch your mirrors and just go over the track limits or just make a mistake because you're watching the mirrors too much, and it can obviously lose you time as well, which is not what you need, and that's exactly what you were talking about there, Lewis. Doesn't want to be involved in this because even having that car behind you makes you just wonder, it makes you worry and makes you look in your mirrors a little bit too much, and then you lose pace to those two in front.
A shout out, by the way, to Scott of Fusion Sim Racing in chat. So it's asymmetric. I was trying to think of that word for ages. Asymmetrical design, where you've got it different on one side than the other. It's a hard thing to pull off on some liveries. Some people can pull it off. Some people most certainly cannot. I am not one that can. Benedetti, he was under pressure. Did not take long for that switch to happen, and Dondi gets his way through on the number 32. Reason why that move might have been pretty easy. That is one GTWR RHG Academy car against the other. So no real surprise to see Benedetti in that Ferrari almost allowing the Aston through without too much of a worry.
Yeah, there wasn't really much of an argument going on there, and so nor would you expect there to be, because of the fact that they are under the same umbrella, as it were, and so yeah, they'll be kind of running along happily together at the moment, and it looks like that Aston Martin's got a little bit of extra pace anyway, so even if they weren't on the same team, it will probably be sensible to do that anyway as we go on board with the 125 once again. Just shows the nose ever so slightly, maybe a bit of tyre cooling going on the right hand side as well, to where the slightly cooler water is, but there's a little bit of traffic up in front. A bright pink Audi, which is quite impressive, just in front of a slightly less bright pink Audi as well, so a bit of traffic to negotiate for these two Aston Martins, and Eric Neat might have this as his opportunity. He needs to try and get through, maybe follow through on what the Aston is doing in front, and maybe this will present the opportunity for him, because those two Audis are battling in front.
Yeah, I believe it's a part of the broadcast. It was quite a bit earlier in the race. There was an incident that happened. Yellow flags were brought out, and there was warnings to a whole host of cars. I can read you out the numbers, but going through which teams are which will take a bit more effort. The 416, the 118, the 1, the 911, the 199, the 194, and the 25 all got warnings for ignoring yellow flags. Now, I get the feeling that race control, if they've already warned quite a few people about yellow flags, they're going to be a bit harsher on the next load they come across.
Yeah, quite possibly. We know that they're going to be under investigation, or we've been told that they're going to be under investigation for it, but whether anything comes of it is another issue. But yeah, it's the classic response, really. That I don't know if I'd call it unhealthy in sim racing, but it is almost glorified, the fact that you press the throttle harder every time you see a yellow flag and just hope for the best, really. But yeah, it looks like that may be coming to an end, certainly in this race, because yeah, you do need to certainly take care when there is a car spun, especially at a corner like Radion, where it's just incredibly fast. I'm trying to look for the 77 out there on the track at the moment and see if they've actually got any damage, but I can't see any slower moving cars, and so I think they've gotten away without major damage in this race. They might have a little bit, but yeah, they've certainly gotten away without major damage. So yeah, a lucky escape for quite a lot of cars by the looks of things in the last few moments, and more pit stops coming up at the front of the field. Romagnoli is now leading, by the way, because the 2 leaders have been in, but Eric Neat is also joining them, and also another Aston Martin following him in.
Yeah, Romagnoli was the first of this lot to pit, running on some slightly shorter stints. Ubik Events Racing, Eric Neat, who's currently on screen, had joined us for an interview before it and said that they weren't. We're seeing this as well in the Sprint Cup. We're seeing this basically anywhere in the SimGrid when it's a competitive championship. That putting in consistent results is really, really difficult. And to be honest, I'd almost say for a championship, not actually necessary in this case, because the points margins, I would take 2 wins and then a bad race. Because it really does, a win really does benefit you a lot.
Well, to be fair, a podium is what you really want around here, because the point system goes 80, 74, 70, 52. There's an 18-point gap between 3rd and 4th, so the emphasis on getting a podium in these races is actually massive. You know, in F1, it's like, you know, you want to win a race because it's 7 points between the two, between 1 and 2, as 1 get their penalty reinstated, so drive-through penalty for those guys. But yeah, getting a podium in this series is very, very important. So I think you're right. If you get 2 podiums in the first 2 races, for example, or 2 out of the first 3 races, and then kind of take the pain of the success ballast for the next race, I think that's a good trade-off as well, especially if you pick up a good amount of intermediate points like some of the teams are going to do at the 24 hours here this weekend.
Yeah, focusing on getting those 24-hour races right is absolutely crucial. Confirmation there on your screen, the penalty has been reinstated for the car 191. Did get the opinion of Niels van der Kelt on that one, but not good enough to overturn that penalty, and they have received the penalty. Seclari behind the wheel of the 191 car at the moment, the Racing Line Motorsport team. It was contact with the Clash Motorsport Aston Martin that's sort of going to see them drop down the order a little bit, but they've got the pace, and realistically, I've said this about the 191 before, that is a proper you know, maybe even an underdog in comparison to GTR WR. I don't know how you'd really view it in that sense, but they are really a super team because they're an incredibly strong team. Racing and Zenith Esports, your 44-car grid. It really is a large grid with plenty of drama up and down it, and so much to decide over this 12-hour race. Engineering with Savalainen on that pole position. Control is his. You've got the 1-2-1 behind, and then of course DV1 Triton victorious in the previous round, of the 157 Simonini piloting our championship winning car of the last season. It is tough stuff up towards the front, and we are underway here for the third round of the season, the 12 hours of Donington Park in the VCO World Cup, trying to go around the outside, running it right into the gravel trap. The Odex Motorsports car, there's contact as well behind. I think that might be Issa, who's just been spun around. There is chaos and carnage. Look at that.
Oh, and that all came from the car that drifted wide, and then the car it rejoined. It then caused a checkup, and I think that's probably involved.
That is behind the wheel of that Ferrari. They got caught up there. Titus, Konrad it is, and look at just how much fighting there is going on towards the end of that pack there. Again, you think outside of the top 30, and that is a poor result, Andy, but what you've got to remember is the top 40 separated by less than a second. It's just unbelievable pace and consistency that we've got going on through this early stage of the race as well, and yeah, awesome stuff here. Just been told by our man on trackside, James Parker, it was the 101 Audi that hit the 601 at turn 1, so that was the Silver Racing Team Eurowash outfit that hit the number 601. That was the Esport Performance Racing Team, so I've got no doubt that that'll be getting looked at afterwards. And in fact, the 601, hang on a minute, 601 is right at the back of the field there as well, so the 601 now looks like to be about 40th place there.
Racing with us in this race, we've got the Rocket Sim Sport squad as well, with their alliance with the Rocket RJN squad, and the more sim racing talent that we can unearth and move over into a real racing car, the better, honestly, because the talent is astonishing. You know, I've done it before, where I've spent, you know, hours and hours practicing in solo practice sessions.
777 of Amir Hosseini just coming down in towards the pit lane just now. Yep, into pit lane then comes Hosseini, and that is going to be a pit stop for your race leader. So Andy, we wait with bated breath, but I mean, I honestly think that Petrochenko has done more than enough to maintain the position right here.
Yeah, that should be the case. The real question is whether Kondaccioglu can keep the Bentley behind, and I think he will. On the previous lap, he was half a second quicker than Hosseini, as those fresh tyres and the fact that Hosseini had traffic maybe came into play. But what the gap will be, we'll have to wait and see, because remember, 211 and 777 were nose to tail before this round of pit stops, so we'll find out in the next 30 seconds or so, probably less than that, exactly what that gap is going to be then. So 777 in the pit lane. 211 you can see on the circuit tracker is just going into the final corner now. So Hosseini's on his way out of the pit lane, but he's got quite a long way to go down that pit exit. Is he going to get out in time? In the meantime, seeing Titus Konrad involved in a battle. There goes Hosseini. He's out of the pit lane. Where's the 211 car? I suspect it's...
yeah, they're turning out to be a bit in the way of people. It's quite busy part of the track, and they're in a bit of traffic right now. But here's another side-by-side battle going on for 21st position this time. Another 3-car battle. We've not been seeing very many 2-car battles, actually. We've seen more trains of 3 and 4 in the last few hours, and that's certainly very entertaining for us. Jordan Burrows trying to defend now from the 111 Triton racing car, which is going to be important for the championship, but obviously that Bentley's going to want to get through on both of them and gain those points.
And you wouldn't bet against it, would you? Because the Bentley has got such a great grunt coming out the corner, but Jordan Burrows just great on the brakes into towards turn 1 in the Aston Martin there. That Bentley is harassing it like nobody's business right now. So fantastic little battle. This is exactly what we were saying though about the fact that 20th, 21st and 22nd, sorry, 21st, 22nd and 23rd, you know, fighting like it's for first, second and third place, fighting for the podium there. Just a reminder, ladies and gentlemen, that Coach Dave Academy are offering all viewers 20% off during the World Cup if you head over to their website and use that code TSGXVCO20. That's TSGXVCO20 to get 20% off their sim packs and sim racing setups. So here's a little bit of a stat for you. Here's a little bit of a nerdy one. Amir Hussaini's taken over the 777 again. Now, Bashir Jadwa, he averaged a lap time of 142.2 per lap in the last stint, but Kundatsioglu was averaging 141.9. So he was losing on average 0.3 of a lap every single lap. It was a 42-lap stint from Jadwa in the 777. That means that he lost 13.4 seconds over the stint, and that's why the 211 has a healthy lead there from the 777. So huge stats there from behind the scenes in our production team. Huge thank you to Michael Hamlet for that one. But Ewan, 13 seconds. I mean, I keep saying about the level of performance, but that's not quite what I expected.
Yeah, that is a really big amount of time to be losing, and that's why Jadvat has been pulled out of that car now, you would imagine, because they can't afford to lose 13 seconds a stint if they want to try and win this race. It just seems that he didn't quite have the pace of the car in front, so yeah, well, he was sticking with them for a little while. Eventually, the pace really came to the fore, and unfortunately he dropped back quite a lot in this one, so they've just got to be careful with that and manage that from now on with Jadvat, because it seems that unless he picks up the pace in the next stint, he's not going to quite have the pace of the leaders when he gets into that car, so they're going to have to manage that throughout their race. If indeed they want to get him another stint in the car, maybe they'll just maybe they'll cover the rest of the race themselves. I'm not entirely sure, but it would be a little bit difficult to leave him out after only doing 1 hour in the car.
Yeah, and that is a big thing coming into the final 5.5 hours is, you know, the drivers and the stints that they've got left is the case of, you know, who are your fast drivers? Do you want to completely leave your fastest driver with, you know, a clear run towards the end of the race? There's a lot of sensible money going on that strategy for some of the drivers, or do you want to try and mix it up and try and get at least an hour out of them so they get a lay of the land early on? It's a difficult one, and it almost changes by the hour as the teams are driving here. But we're still watching Jordan Burrows in the 1-2-5 at the moment then for Ubik Events Racing here, trying desperately to make things work. But the number 1 car of Cody Blanton into pit lane then, and that leaves Burrows and Tiskovic to fight themselves on their own. But Robin Pigaro's starting to bring himself into that little battle as well, making it another little 3-car mix that they've got on. So it's Burrows, Tiskovic and Robin Pigaro.
The rule's pretty simple. If you spin out another car, it's pretty much a slam dunk drive through, and that's what Props is dealing with. I kind of feel for him. I get it. It's so hard coming down into turn 1. Everyone was being fairly cautious, just kind of left it down the inside at a point where you know that you're 3-4 wide, they're going to come back across your nose at that point. So yeah, you're always going to spin them out, and it's always going to be a drive-through penalty like that.
Yeah, it's always difficult, isn't it? But I think once you've decided it's not a racing incident, you then have to apportion blame somewhere, and you certainly couldn't apportion blame to the ODOX Audi, could you? So it's sort of our process of elimination has to then be put on the shoulders of the Ferrari. But yeah, good news is they've got plenty of time to bounce back from it. The bad news is it's quite a hole that they've got themselves into. Niels Nyox here now. He's starting to walk to the task, isn't he? Faded a little bit there in the opening couple of laps, but he's 11th place now as a few of the others have served their penalties ahead. He's got the Konrad Aston Martin ahead, and he looks a little bit faster at this stage. I also noticed that Dominic Blyer is back up into 12th place, so his recovery already beginning. He's about a second and a half behind these two, so it's going to be interesting to see, isn't it, how quickly that pale blue and black Bentley can bridge that gap and close in maybe on these two.
Well, we'll keep our eyes focused on. I agree. I think like with Nyox, keeping our eyes on him as this car seems to. Like I said, the start of the race, maybe getting the tyres up to temperatures wasn't quite there. The more the laps have gone on, the more it's looked a bit comfortable. If you're not recognising, by the way, the 125 directly ahead, I was certainly a little bit thrown off. Of course, this is the Real Racing Club car, which was formerly the Ubik Events car. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm all for a bright livery, and we will talk livery through this race. I know we're only 15 minutes in, so I'll keep it brief, but let's be honest, that does look like an apple and rhubarb sweet, so we'll go with that. I do quite like a bright livery, but I do prefer the Ubik Events car from before. But, each their own. Either way, I will just hear, in my ear, just hearing the 41 is under investigation. Let's see what else happened around the thermometer. Oh, God, it's a bit naughty with the clash car spinning around AAA and then receiving a bit of a hit themselves. The 154 also getting a hit. Very, very messy through turn 1 and turn 2 in the back of the pack. We didn't quite catch that.
No, I was going to say that I hadn't spotted that first time around, but that was really unfortunate and exactly what we said might happen. If one car gets turned into a spin, then it tends to have a knock-on effect with other cars, and that initial spin at turn 1, it caused a stack up into turn 2, and then when one car comes spinning, the question I posed at the start of the race, as off there goes Luca Burke. Luca Burke runs wide, comes out of the chicane, and so Urbrick will get up the inside of him through the final corner, and now I think Burke might get hung out to dry because Frank is up the inside, Smollier is next in line, he won't want to hang around, and that looked like just a little bit too much speed carried out of the chicane. Maybe he got on the curb as well, and Luca Burke doing well not to lose control completely.
Oh, no!
But very much losing control is Frank up the inside, and how they all missed him, Lewis, I've no idea.
Well, Zenith has also been off in all of that, so I'm not we need to definitely take another look at that, because Airbrick, I think Franka might have run into the side of Luca Burke, and then Burke was a little bit out of control. Luca Burke still a little bit out of control, as coming through was Konrad as well, making up that position in the green and pink Aston Martin, and DV1 Triton are coming back in orders. What a dramatic moment in this race. That is crazy. I need to take a million more looks for Luca Burke, looking backwards, saying about the McLarens, at least one thing for him, the next 2 cars behind him are all McLarens.
Yes, exactly, and that's going to be interesting then to see how they handle these conditions. It's damage limitation then. Don't do anything else silly. Don't do anything else to put you even further behind the 8 ball, Just have a clean start to the race. But of course, it can sometimes be that snowball effect, can't it? You have the penalty, you drop back in the pack, you're then racing against drivers you're not that familiar with, you're having to try and make that progress, and a bit of frustration maybe sneaks in as well, and it's very, very easy at that stage to paving the way for them, it has to be said. So he's second place at the moment in this race. Then Grabowski is into the 41 car now then, so we've got Dennis Grabowski in the Simware.Pro car in third, the championship leading car, remember. DV1 Triton, we haven't mentioned them for a while, but Dominic Blyer is back in the car. They put Tushkovic in for a stint, and now Dominic's back in again, the man that started that 111 car, and he's 7th place. So actually, they've picked up a couple of places over the last pit window and the preceding laps before that. So let's see whether Blyer now can unlock some of that pace that he had, particularly at the start of his first stint.
Yeah, I think get out of the car for a little bit, just breathe, just calm yourself down, and then get back in it. Sometimes it does really, really help. Dominic Blyer is a talented driver. Just needs to refocus on the race at hand. But like I say, definitely not out of this one. Certainly not with how these kind of races go. So yeah, I could see him closing up. At least you focus on what's ahead of you. Right now, it's getting inside the top 5. Moss and Nita are quite close. They're realistically just down the road, 2 seconds. You can see there Dominic Blyer just coming through shot now. But I would be a little bit concerned about the 11.8 seconds back to Tobias Pfeffer, who's jumped in behind the wheel of the 157. Of course, they've been making an awful lot of progress since the start of the race after their stop-go 30, but that's a problem for a different time. They're 12 seconds back, so don't worry about that now. Just focus on these 2 cars ahead, as Bastian Richter instantly starting to pull out a little bit of a...
with Eric Neath right behind him, 2 Aston Martins. They are right on cue, and this is that beautiful, stunning, just Real Racing Club Aston Martin with its bright pink and green livery, which has divided opinion all week, but it is looking quick right now, actually quicker than the 44 car ahead of it, I would say, and Neath looking to try and gain that top 5 position back. This is always one of the fascinations of long distance racing for me, though, as the driver
switched a couple of times. Either way, Williams is ahead of WPS.
Well, Cormac there, I thought he'd fallen asleep, and then he got to the braking zone and suddenly sort of jumped back into life as the car wriggled around underneath him, and he tried to avoid making contact with the car to his left. That was interesting, that one. Here comes the Neath car once again, then closes, carrying a lot more mid-corner speed, but look at who is reading them in. Dominic Blyer is back at the races, everybody. DB1 Triton Racing in 7th place. They can see a chance to move into the top 5 and be just a couple of positions behind their championship contenders Simware.pro, who currently sit in 3rd position. So that big Bentley, as the conditions maybe get a bit less wet, it is just starting to come back to them. Bit of a mistake there from Ross in the number 44 car. Neath almost was a bit too close to capitalise on that though, and so Dominic Blyer is the quicker of the 3 of them through the chicane, and he's not going to be that far away, I think, from getting properly stuck into this battle.
Dominic Blyer is flying at the moment, was realistically one of the fastest drivers. It was only Pfeffer and Richter who were faster on the previous lap, as here comes Neath down around the outside. That one's not going to work, and it's just going to cost him time. He's going to try and make it stick on the cutback, but then you've got to go around all the way around the outside of the arena section. Did see this in DTM a few years ago, but right now it's just a little bit too wet. Going back for the switch down the inside, there's contact between the two. Dominic Blyer will say thank you very much and might well pick up a position on Ross. That was a bit naughty from Neath, and gaining that one. There comes, oh, look at this from Blyer. There comes Blyer, 1, 2, both through. Superb stuff. Just as he was trying to hand the position back with Neath to Ross, Blyer didn't care one bit. He came through and grabbed both.
Brilliant racing that from Dominic. That was astonishing. He read that situation so well, didn't he? He knew when to get involved. He hung back, he waited till they came out of the Mercedes arena, and then he thought, right, now, go. And he got the power down, he got off the corner, which that is the Bentley's big problem, usually in the wet, is rear traction coming off the corners, but he had plenty of rear grip there and came charging past the pair of them. And then, as you said, Neath there just letting Ross back through in the 44 car after their little hip and shoulder through the preceding corner. So that could not have worked out any better for DB1 Triton, who find themselves now back in the top 5, and they didn't really have to do anything. They just let these two battle amongst themselves and went straight past them, and now that battle continues as well, which means they don't have much of a chance of striking back at it, whereas the 21 car still can't break into the top 20. Back with Eric Neath then in the Real Racing Club Aston Martin, still staring at the rear end of the number 44 car then, the Revolution Sim Racing Aston Martin, as it makes its way up the hill towards the chicane. You can see the Bentley getting smaller and smaller ahead of us as Dominic Blyer pulls away even further, and let's wait to see what Blyer's lap time is now that he's back in clean air. Is he capable of getting into the mid 2-minute ones? He needs to be, really, if he's to have any chance of closing in on those ahead. The answer is yes. He does a 2 minutes 1.3, so really impressive pace that then from Dominic Blyer. He was on that lap 6/10 quicker than Pignone ahead. Is there a chance for Neath at the hairpin? No, there is not. He has to settle back in line again behind. But Lewis, this timing screen is lighting up like a Christmas tree right now, isn't it? There's clearly been quite a big shift in track conditions over the last 10-15 minutes, and drivers really now starting to find some speed.
Yeah, and this is probably, as a racing driver, it's actually the most exciting. Everyone is improving big style right now.
Yeah, they're just gaining in confidence as much as anything else, aren't they? And getting into the groove, getting into the rhythm. This is why you want to leave the same driver in for as long as possible as the conditions develop, because they will just get almost a sixth sense as to how much grip there will be when they get to each corner, and they can just extract that bit more pace out of their cars. Eric, though, still can't get into 6th place, can he? This has been quite a frustrating portion of the race. The Bentley behind, by the way, the 777, that is a lap down now, unfortunately. The winners last time out at Kyalami, 35th place for Zahir Essa in that 777 car just behind, and they are actually running not that slowly, it must be said. Essa just did a 2 minutes 1.9 and Blyer a 2 minutes 1.3, so they're within half a second or so of the other Bentley, which is a lap or so ahead of them. Through the hairpin at turn number 1, Tobias Pfeffer, though, is the man on the move. He's 6.2 seconds behind this group. Tobias just did a 2 minutes flat 0.9.
Hour. Realistically, this racetrack should be getting faster and faster and faster. And again, from having driven in conditions similar, they've moved over normally a little bit faster than what we're seeing here. In endurance racing terms, this is actually about as fun as it gets. Just because it's constantly changing, constantly evolving, and you just build in confidence. But you cannot get so confident that you think the track's getting faster and faster, I'm adding a kilometre an hour every time we're going into this corner. Then you go a little bit too quick. You've pushed it past the threshold, and then you have a very, very big crash. It's very easy to do right now.
Yeah, absolutely. It's certainly fascinating to watch, isn't it? What I like about this is that you can't really think about it as logically as that, can you, in a way? You can't think, oh, okay, I can carry maybe an extra 2 kilometres an hour now through a corner. It's all about the feel. It's about that seat of the pants feel, which even in sim racing you do get with the technology you have now through things like force feedback and whatever in the wheel. You really do almost get that seat of the pants feel, and it's a sixth sense, like I said.
I know the start of their season wasn't amazing. They had a few technical issues, and then just bad luck, and I think a few mistakes as well. But when you add it all up, it didn't go too well at the start. So, jumping into here, it's a little less pressure when you join a new team, because I guess with us not being too high up in the standings, when we can sort of go all out. But whenever we're battling with someone, we can sort of we don't have too much risks. So, but I've just been trying my hardest. I did the race at Kyalami last time with the S heat, and that went really well for us on a track which doesn't really suit the McLaren. And around here, I mean, we've got a fair bit of ballast. We're going against the Astons in the wet, which are, like I say, a very strong car here. And we're keeping up. Like I say, we're still in contention to win. So I don't know where that'll put us in the championship, but I'm hoping that my performance can leave a good impression.
So it looks as though the positions have actually been redressed now. So I think they're all pretty much back where they were, 720 ahead of 34. But that was a rather aggressive move that rather predictably ended in contact.
Yeah, I mean, when you're diving down from that far back, it's never going to end particularly well. Someone who saved something which wasn't looking particularly good, but then they did manage to save it, was Neat, who's directly ahead of Tobias Pfeffer now, who's managed to catch up to the rear end of this, coming through this section. Had a really good catch of a pretty tricky slide coming through this section, and Ross got through and all that lot. But now that Pfeffer is right here, I get the feeling this is an inevitability. Did a 2:04 on the previous lap. It's now a 2:05 with a purple first sector as well. So going faster and faster, but the fastest lap of the race came from someone a bit further back on the grid, as Sadirov actually set it in an Audi at a 2:03.48. That is down in 39th spot. This is what I was bringing up earlier, though, Andy, is that when you're catching, when you're going so much faster than everyone else, it's all well and good, it's great. Once you get there, though, and you can't
see the time that you're hemorrhaging to the cars you're chasing, and Tobias Pfeffer will definitely be experiencing that now. I think he drops down the hill. He's again not quite close enough here, but having worked so hard to get out of that hole, to get back into the top 10, they're very much still contenders for a really good result, maybe even a race win here before this race is out. It would be stupid now to go for a rash dive on either of these cars, end up making contact and serving a penalty. It looks as though he's going to make the move done here, though. He was a quick round of the Schumacher S's, goes to the inside, and as long as he gets the car stopped, he will be ahead of the 125 machine then. So that is one of those places made in a slightly unusual place, actually, but the Audi was just so much better, I think, on the change of direction through the Schumacher S's. He carried the speed up the hill and made that move stick. But yeah, Tobias has to be careful now not to undo all of the hard work he's done. It's better to sit here for a few laps and scoping out than go for the move straight away. But he's not listening to me, is he? Because he's almost pushing the Aston Martin through the chicane, goes up the inside into the Coca-Cola curve, and it all of a sudden looks rather like he's got the difficulty turned down to zero, doesn't it? Because he just weaves his way past those two and now should be able to set sail again. Brilliant.
Yeah, I've done that. It was against the AI, but I've done it. No, that was very, very impressive. Tobias Pfeffer. Oh, but he's had to turn out because the double dive bomb down the inside still manages to keep the position, but that shows how aware he was. He was braking for it, checked his mirrors, signal mirror maneuver.
1.0 again though for Richter that time, so that seems to be his pace, whereas maybe those behind him are able to go just a little bit quicker. We'll monitor that situation as well as this battle, which is still going on, and that was a mistake there for Neath. He's been stuck behind the 44 Revolution Sim Racing Aston Martin for a long time, and he's gone wide again there, has he, into Coca-Cola. So it's that word again, isn't it? It's frustration. He knows he's quicker, he can't get through, and he's starting to overdrive a bit now.
Yeah, that's what happened a little bit before when he made that mistake. Again, a little bit of a mistake behind Ross, and the second time he's done it, it will get very...
a couple of hundredths quicker than he'd gone before. To extend the margin over this battling pair who are going to be side by side here, aren't they? Because Eric Neat goes to the outside, commits to it, he's on the slightly drier line, but he's got to go the longer way around. That doesn't work. Ross hangs on, but now Neat gets the switch back. This is what I said before though, so many parts of this circuit are right, left. It's so hard to actually find yourself on the inside line when you want to be.
Yeah, that was, again, another great attempt from Neat to try and get by, but each time that he attempts, that frustration that you kept talking about builds and builds and builds. And for the Real Racing Club, there's just no way through right now, because Ross, for the lack of pace that he might have, there's just no real mistakes. There's another look from Neat, but Ross doesn't really care. He's just doing his own thing. There is no move that is actually working on the number 44 Revolution Sim Racing car right now, which, to be fair, is the right thing. Like for Ross, he doesn't need to be covering off left, right and centre. He doesn't need to be thinking about the car behind. Focus ahead and do what you're doing, because 9 times out of 10, especially around a race circuit like this, that'll be enough. It was something that we saw in British touring cars we see this all the time in British touring cars, that the fastest way around the racetrack, weirdly enough, is the racing line. If you just do that, especially on a circuit which is hard to pass at, no one will get through. So just do that and don't make a mistake, and that is the philosophy that Ross is just following right now.
Yeah, as
the
soon
track
as you
going faster and faster, he's finding the speed.
He is, but it's not quite consistent enough, is it? Because again, the gap is still hovering just over 16 seconds, which has been for a while now. So he can do the odd quick lap, but then Basti Richter always seems to be able to respond to it, doesn't he? Grabowski in third, doing 2 minutes 0.8 though. So the Simware.Pro Aston Martin is not as quick as the 2 cars ahead. Pignone behind is matching him, sort of, and then Blyer a couple of tenths quicker. But we do now have the top 6 cars all lapping in the 2 minute zeros. So they're all starting now to creep down toward that sub 2 minute lap time. Eric Neat here still stuck behind Ross at the moment.
It is such a fantastic affair, and as you said, there's so many variables, so many moving pieces in this final chess match that will all kind of play itself out over.
Come in again and take slicks at some point, then they need to come in again and take slicks at some point. The gamble, if you go on to slicks too early, anything that you think that you're going to gain, you could lose yourself a lot more time.
Like this morning when that checkered flag came out, it gives me a new understanding now of what it means for these drivers to be putting in. And for those that watch this and think, oh, they're just playing computer games, or that it's they're just playing with Ataris, there's some other dismissive comment, I can absolutely get the ball rolling back up to watch with the saga with Mateusz Tiskevich, as we see Denis Grabowski into the 155s now. But Mateusz Tiskevich has seen that, and he's decided to do a 154.8 on that last lap round. The gap that was 23 seconds is now 12 seconds. That is in 11 seconds. That is amazing stuff. That was an overtake and a half there. Eric Neat is on an absolute mission right now. I'm not so sure about delivery on that 125, but we'll maybe leave that one alone. But Michael Ross as well. And you've got to say, Paul, that is a proper traffic jam that's behind Michael Ross right now.
Yeah, we've got a lot of cars on a small amount of tarmac. 2 Porsches side by side as well, heading down into the hairpin. They just about survived.
Oh, this is starting to get a bit scary, because we're back on board with Dennis Schoeninger, and that is the 125 in front of us of Titus, Konrad and Paul. I mean, Dennis is so eager to get past here. I'm just... Yeah.
You've got to be wary. You've got to be wary. The last time these two came together was not a pretty sight, and Dennis Schoeninger now back on the attack again. He's very strong very strong indeed. The WPS Racing team gets a good launch off of the hairpin. He's not really got much opportunity around the outside, but he's still hanging the car there. That is bravery personified. Dennis Schoninger takes all the risks. Unfortunately, it does not pay off. It does a little bit of a visit to the beach, but fortunately the gravel is wet, so the Audi R8 manages to skirt over the top of it without too much time lost. But that just shows you, David, Dennis Schoninger, massively brave to stay around the outside there, and had the grip but not quite enough tarmac to pull it off. So that Audi is much faster than the Aston Martin at this stage in the race, and Schoninger is just immediately laid a marker down and shown the world, I am not afraid to put a move on this car and I am going for it. So that's fascinating stuff from the 21.
Yeah, that was a good effort, but I mean, what did he expect going to happen? Konrad was always going to try and close that door there and show Schoninger onto the grass. It's like that meme of the kids riding the bicycle that puts a stick in his front wheel and then shouts at Titus Konrad. That's exactly what's happened here, and it's going to happen, but he's going to have to just be patient. He's just going to have to wait and, you know, bide his time, get that thing going, and then just wait for a straight there. He's got the pace, we know that, but I wonder if Konrad actually has the makings of the Audi in a straight line, and that's why Schoninger has to make it on the entry corner.
Yeah, patience doesn't look like it's particularly one of the words at the forefront of Dennis Schoninger's mind at this stage in the race. They're very, very close into the break-in of T1 at the start of the Mercedes Arena, and now Schoninger again, he has got so much more grip underneath him at this stage in the race. The car's turning in so much more aggressively. It's holding traction on corner exits so much stronger than the garishly liveried Aston Martin ahead of him. And Schoninger, as you say, not quite got the run in a straight line, but look how much deeper into the corner he can go. The Aston Martin having to go to the wide line and back to the tight one to get the launch through the hairpin. This gives Schoninger another opportunity at the same section of racetrack that we saw the off-track just a lap ago. Not close enough to get side by side this time, but Schoninger showing every little bit of the number 21 car he possibly can in the mirrors of the Aston Martin ahead. He's trying to scare the Konrad machine off of the racing line. He's trying to make Konrad make a mistake, compromise his launch out of the corners to give himself a good opportunity for Dennis Schoninger to get through and away, but nothing's happening yet. The chicane, not really an overtaking position unless both cars are playing a ball into that corner, so Schoninger does well not to make the move there. He'll line him up through the final corner, David, and then this is the opportunity now for the run down the start-finish straight. But does the Audi have the legs of the Aston Martin to get alongside into the T1 braking zone?
Well, that's what we're away to find out. The nose to tail. This is going to be a huge opportunity then for Dennis Schoninger. He's on the toe of that Aston Martin. They move one way, then the other. Gets shown onto the grass by Titus Konrad. He's still going to try and make a move anyway. There's going to be contact. There is contact, but the Audi makes it stick. The Aston's going to try and put it up the inside, but that is it done and dusted, and it'll guarantee...
Not quite has the pace of Tuskovic, but still keeping himself in contention. You don't really need to worry about the 10ths at this stage in the proceedings. It's just keep yourself in the picture, hand the car over to your teammate at the stop in a reasonable order, in a reasonable part of the racetrack. So they're still very much in the fight for this podium position. Andrea Capoccia in 5th place, not really having a great deal to contend with ahead of him, but with Robbie Stapleford not too far behind. And Stapleford, of course, is one of a 3-car battle in 6, 7 and 8 that we're looking at. Jack Keithley now 9th position, just ahead of Neath in the 125 behind. And Keithley, this is a car, the Williams Esports number 5, that's quietly gone about its business and staying in a reasonable position in the top 10, but I'm sure they'd be after a little bit more given a chance.
Penalty just coming through there, the number 35 then of Vincent Erbrecht. Shock horror, Paul has got himself a drive-through. I wonder what that could... The top 10 for us. That is it from us, Paul. We have reached the end of our 4-hour stint. I mean, let's have your final thoughts on what we've just witnessed.
Well, for my very first SimGrid by VCO World Cup race, this has been a 24-hour endurance race that's been broken down into essentially mini sprints, one after the other. The driving standards have been incredible from some of our drivers. We saw a little bit of drama with the Unicorns of Love race leading car on potentially a suboptimal strategy when the rain started to fall. They got away with that one nicely and have controlled the race since then. Matthias Tiskovic has done wonders in the 111 machine to get that car into third position. Some great strategy over the course of the pit stop window as well to liberate third place from the number 41. So great drive from them. George Boothby being very quiet at the 149 but holding good position in second place, and again battling all the way down the running order, fighting for 21st, 22nd position just as hard as the race leaders would be as well. And it's been 4 hours, David Christie. I always enjoy sharing the commentary box with your good self, and about 4 hours has gone by in a flash, and I cannot think of a better way to spend a Saturday afternoon. I'm just so grateful to have been invited into this race, and basically I cannot wait to get up at the crack of dawn at 6 a.m. and do it all again for our next stint behind the box.
Woo, bring on 6 a.m. Right, that is it from us here in the virtual commentary box, from David Christie and from Paul Jeffrey. We're going to head to ads, and up next after the break, continuing coverage of the final rounds of the SimGrid VCO World Cup with Lewis McGlade and Nick Foster.
Well, welcome then back to the SimGrid VCO World Cup. It is season finale time as we have our championship decider. We say goodbye to David Christie and Paul Jeffrey and welcome into the SimGrid commentary booth for the first time in quite a while, and not normally someone who'd be associated with commentary. It's Mr. Nick Foster. Hello.
G'day, Lou. How's it going, brother?
Yeah, all good. I'm excited for this. For 4 hours of interesting, from someone that can actually drive in sim racing and in the real world.
Yeah, no, well, I'm in the comment box because I got fired after the 24-hour spa in the McLaren. So, this is my best way to be part of it or remain part of it.
So from a racing driver's perspective, you can see obviously we're here at the Nürburgring, which is a tricky circuit in itself. We're in the pit window sequence as well, which we will go through, don't worry. But it's night time, it's raining, it's looking like the rain's getting heavier as well. This is difficult stuff right now.
Yeah, this is the tough part of the race. You've been in for 6-7 hours already. Maybe you've done 2 or 3 stints. Every time you get in the car, it's changing conditions, nighttime. There's a few guys out there that are just trying to circulate for championship positions. There's other guys that are out of that window who are just fighting for a result. So you've got so much different sort of context of the race for different drivers in different scenarios. And then even on top of that, you then still have another 15 hours still to run. So it's all about, all that's in the back of your mind still working through that you have to get through the next 10 hours 15 hours of the race.
Yeah, and we'll be taking you as a broadcast up to the final parts of this race, the final parts of the first 12 hour, where we're going to roll through the second running of points, because we've already dished out some points at the 6 hour mark as well, but the 12-hour point is important for points as well. We've already dished out a few points which have gone the way of the 111 car, which has picked up a few over its championship rival, the 41, which looks like it might well continue on.
dedicate towards building these setups, it's such an incredible tool. I put myself very firmly in that category. I mean, I don't know anything about setups. I really don't, despite having been around racing and sim racing for such an incredibly long time. It just doesn't gel. It's just a foreign language to me that I cannot comprehend. So for someone such as me that doesn't have the skill nor time to be able to build these kind of setups, it's such an incredible asset to be able to have. And much like yourself, David, I was a little bit skeptical. I mean, this sounds like a sales pitch, but it really isn't. I have no horse in this race. I have no requirement by doing this broadcast to sing the praises of the Coach Dave Academy setups at all. So this is genuine personal feedback. I was very skeptical about the idea of buying a setup. No, I don't think so. You can get them off the internet for free, or you can build your own or speak to your friends. And I dipped my toe in the water for the Aston Martin, funnily enough, and night and day. The difference is absolutely night and day. I was worried, as you say, I've tried many setups before, and because they're not tailored to my particular driving strengths or preferences, I found them nigh on impossible to drive and just literally couldn't extract the lap time from the cars. Got these Coach Dave ones in really, really fast. Comfortable for me personally as well. They were raceable and drivable, short distance, long distance, whatever. And it'd be impossible for me to tell you the kind of lap time gains I got, because I'm just not one of these people that can quote my best lap time at any circuit. I just don't, just not sink into my mind. But most definitely gave me significant amounts of lap time, gave me a platform in which I can race a heck of a lot faster and harder than I could without it, because I genuinely think they're brilliant. And I've then gone on from there and bought a number of setups for ACC, and I'll no doubt sniff around see if Coach Dave wants to give me a discount being a commentator. But yeah, brilliant stuff. So I recommend it. It's something that I would definitely say to anybody out there that's maybe thinking, I don't think so, or that's not for me. Give it a try, especially with a 20% offer that we've got on at the moment, because I think you'll be very, very pleasantly surprised indeed at just how much of an improvement that brings to the table for you.
Yeah, it really, really is such a leg up, and it really brings up that interesting point that we've talked about a couple of times before about the margin of difference for these drivers and these teams, because when you're on a public server or you're on maybe a league race or
unfortunately, I'm afraid that feels very true indeed. The McLaren really, really struggling as the Lamborghini, that is Chris Sönke, goes down to serve a drive-through penalty in 26th position, so takes himself out of this little bit of pipe. But now Michael Burrows, has his best opportunity, gets the overlap, but it's to the outside, coming down into T1. Burrows very, very late on the brakes. We've seen Audi B many times before. He's given enough racing room by Balzar, and then they collide almost into the apex, but the McLaren recognises there is an Audi there again, leaves the door open, gives racing room. Michael Burrows now to the inside, will become the outsiders. There we have a Porsche going off the racetrack, but Burrows still holding on to the outside line. They're too wide now for the run down into the chicane. That is job done. Or is it? No, it's not. The McLaren decides he still wants to hang on. Brave, somewhat foolish, some might say. Position lost, and now the 125 is buying into this fight as well. This is Seidel in the 125 Aston Martin. This is for track position, so Burrows has lost, gained one position. Balzar has lost one, and Seidel fancies his chances against the McLaren. Very, very tight over the curve through the hairpin. That compromises a little on corner exit, and I think Balzar just about has it for another few corners at least. But this brightly coloured Aston Martin fancies a move up the running order, goes to the inside, not quite fast enough at that juncture, but it is coming fast.
Oh my goodness me, Sönke Seidel for Real Racing Club. Schinkenwagen is absolutely all over this McLaren. It's going to be like candy from a baby through this corner here. Not a chance. The Aston Martin's going to have the run. Is going to be into the corner here, and the McLaren isn't going to have a thing at all it can say about it. That was a wonderful little battle there between the number 21 there. The Audi just made it look so easy for the WPS racing team of Michel Brent taking that position from Nick Baltzar. The problem is that Baltzar really didn't have anything in the tank that he could hold off, but the fact that we were treated to about 8 different corners where they were side by side, That's what I love. That is proper racing. And I guarantee you, for both Michel Perez and for Nick Balta, they would have felt like the absolute man going toe-to-toe with their rival there for about 8 different corners. It really leaves you on the edge of your seat, and the adrenaline that courses through your veins when you get fights like that, regardless that it's for, 18th position, is just incredible.
Absolutely, and that is why these guys and we do what we do. It's for the thrill of the racing. Some great respect between two rivals there. It's not the first time that we've seen that during this race. We had an incident earlier in the event back over yesterday, it was now, where cars ran side by side for 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 corners without making contact, and we absolutely love to see that thing here in the commentary box as Seidel just runs a little bit over onto the rough stuff, but no time lost, realistically speaking. So these cars now remain as you were in 18th, 19th and 20th position. Balzar really struggling for pace in the 77.
I don't think they would be taking, they're not taking any risk in this race anymore like that. No way. And so for other people, like I say, you can take that gamble. It's all well and good. Don't worry about it. But when you've got potential rain on the horizon, I'd want my strategy as open as possible. I don't want to close myself off. If you're guaranteed it being dry, which you're not ever in this area, then yeah, sure, close yourself off on strategy and work properly backwards. Whereas right now, you can't afford it.
Yeah, that's exactly my point. There are far too many unknown elements to what's going to happen over the next 2 hours and 23 minutes that you just can't afford to take that sort of risk and put yourself in a box, put yourself into